Alumni Hall, where you'll find officially licensed FSU gear for the entire family, including brands like Nike and Champion, plus great gifts for your favorite Seminole and home decor, too. Miss some of the old Seminole throwback logos? Check out our College Vault collection. Shop online at alumnihall.com and let our great customer sales team ship to you within days. Or pick up in store in Tallahassee. You'll find us in the Miracle Plaza Shopping Center on Thomasville Road. Students and military get 10% off in store, and Osceola subscribers get 20% off in store and online with their digital membership cards. Alumni Hall. It's the Osceola's Seminole Sidelines. For more on the Seminoles, including Osceola's coverage from veteran Seminole insiders, message boards, Osceola virtual happy hours, and more, go to theosceola.com.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Osceola Seminole Sidelines podcast, presented by Alumni Hall, your source for officially licensed FSU gear for the entire family. Please visit Alumni Hall at alumnihall.com or at the Tallahassee store located at 1817 Thomasville Road. My name is Pat Burnham, host of Seminole Sidelines, and joining me today to discuss the latest in FSU sports are Osceola publisher Jerry Cutts, Osceola managing editor Bob Ferrante, Osceola recruiting analyst Charles Fishbein, and Osceola football analyst Mark Salva. Guys, it's kind of been a slow week around Florida State's campus. Jerry and Bob, I'm kind of going to turn it over to you guys first. The reports were obviously going back to last week that FSU AD David Coburn was going to retire sometime between last week and the end of, I believe, June. Of course, then the rumors were going out that Louisville AD Vince Tyra was going to take the job. And today, FSU announced Mr. Alford as the AD. So, Jerry, how did we get here?
Well, I think it was an interesting week, to say the least. Fun week of reporting, if you want to call it fun, which it is. There was a lot of rumors and a lot of credible information that we were able to verify that Florida State, in fact, did offer Vince Tyra the job at Louisville, and why Tyra chose to resign from Louisville and withdraw from the FSU job is still the mystery. We don't know that. But let me back up well before that. I think when President Thrasher was here and Board of Trustee Chairman Ed Burr, when they hired Michael Alford to come in here to run Seminole Boosters, I think there was a master plan at that point that one day he would be considered for and probably chosen as the athletic director. And I think that's the reason he left an athletic director's job at Central Michigan. And as I've written and said many times before, anytime you have a change in presidents, all bets are off. So I feel like with President McCullough and a new chairman of the Board of Trustees, they got off of the original plan to name Michael Alford as athletic director. And then when things didn't go the way that they expected, Michael Alford was the natural choice. And sometimes you get to the right place in an odd manner. But my sense today, all week, I was hearing from members of the athletic staff and the Seminole booster staff and donors that I had worked with in the past, and they all wanted Michael Alford. They felt like Michael Alford was the right choice. And so today was a happy day for those people. And Pat, what they really felt was that Alford represented some continuity, that, he had sold his vision while he was here over the last 16 months. The department, when you replace a guy like Andy, who'd been in that job 45 years, and he was able to win over that booster office. He won over a lot of the coaches we talked to today, and they're just looking for stability right now. There's been so much turmoil in this university between presidential changes, head coaching changes, athletic director changes, that Michael Alford represented an oasis of stability, and it was almost celebratory today among the staff. And I'm talking about, the guys who work in the ticket office and in the booster sales office, and they just they wanted stability.
Bob, kind of give us your take on how it all played out over the course of the last week.
It was a wild ride, and I think it did shift a lot on Florida State officials during the process, and maybe some things caught them surprised. I think some things caught a relatively young president and Richard McCullough by surprise. This was his first high-profile hire, as well as he's trying to find a provost and some other members of his cabinet here. But he's only been on the job since mid-August. It's mid-December. He's still kind of learning and trying to figure things out, and there's a lot of politics related to hires. I think one interesting line that McCullough said was there was a lot of screaming, a lot of positives. I think there were maybe some happy cussing back at him, when he was telling boosters and fans that Michael Alford was the hire. I think there was some celebration that he heard back at him as he made phone calls on Thursday. Alford may not have been the first choice. I don't think he was. We all kind of get it, but he's a choice for a lot of reasons, and it's a vision. It's an understanding of what the student athlete is, because he was one. He's married to a coach. He's a son of a coach. I think he checks a lot of boxes and understands how to raise money. But I think in the end, he had a really good line, basically saying on Friday that he wants student athletes to leave FSU with a meaningful degree on one hand and a title ring on the other. And I think that kind of combines the overall vision of what college athletics should be about. You want to excel in the classroom and on the field.
I went back to his office with him afterwards, met him after he had lunch with his family, and we talked more specifically on video, which you can see on the Osceola here, that about more specifically, Michael's been a builder. When he was at Alabama, he built their Bryant and Denny section. When he was at Oklahoma, he did a $160 million project at Oklahoma. Jerry Jones brought him in to build AT&T Stadium, and he was integrally involved in that. And, I talked to him about that. And, he said, I love dust and hard hats. And anywhere I go, the contractors get excited because they know construction's going to follow. And he talked about building locker rooms for his gymnastics team at Central Michigan. It was, a highly rated gymnastics team, $1 million locker room, because they deserved it. And he loves building. I mean, and whatever the project size is, it doesn't matter the sport. He's, his skill is in having a vision for things and then going out and raising the money to build them with. And that really is what FSU needs. And I'll add one other thing. I spent a lot of time talking to Dave Hart about what the right athletic director would be at Florida State. And he thought that one of the key components, and David Coburn had mentioned this too, that the internal work was what David could do and was focused on. But what David didn't have experience at, or contacts or relationships, was on the national level. And Dave Hart makes a strong argument that Florida State really needed an athletic director who has served on national committees, with the NCAA or with the conference office. And what you have in Alford is you have a guy who is Jim Phillips at the ACC is his mentor. He's always looked to Jim Phillips throughout his career for advice and guidance. Michael Alford is the guy that when the NCAA, when they started talking about NIL, they put a group of athletic directors together across the country. Michael was chosen to be on that committee when he was at Central Michigan. And those athletic directors on that committee appointed him to be the chair of the committee. And when he took the job here at Seminole Boosters, they said, "Oh no, you don't get to not serve. You're still the chairman." So he has the respect of a lot of athletic directors and the NCAA and Jim Phillips, and that is very important. I don't know that Vince Tyra would have brought that to us. And so in Alford, you're getting not only stability, but you're getting a guy with vision who has national relationships.
Well, you guys have both mentioned, and I do want to get Mark's take on the hire as well, because he follows the program closely, not just the football program. But you mentioned the boosters. He had done a very successful job and had been well received by boosters, and the campaign that, obviously raising money for the footballing facility had gathered steam. Where does Florida State go now to fill that role? And do you think, or do any of you guys think that having him serve in that role will strengthen the relationship between the athletic department and the booster office?
Well, I can speak to that. I think it certainly strengthens the relationship, the connection, because, and I'll give David Coburn credit for this to begin with. You have three separate entities, really: the boosters, the athletics department, and Westcott. And when you have good leadership, they work well together. I worked there 19 years, and I can tell you that during the Dave Hart administration, we worked well. The three entities worked well together. I saw it work well under Hootie. I saw it work well under Bob. In recent years, it was strained. I thought David was the elixir. A lot of people think of David as a bean counter, but David had the respect and trust of Westcott, and Andy Miller really respects David, and people in athletics came to respect him. And he was able to build that bridge, that relationship. That relationship is not broken right now. Michael Alford's walking into something that works, that's functional, and that he wants to make better. So I really think, Pat, it really strengthens it. And I'll go one step further. When FSU formed the FSU Athletic Association under John Thrasher and David Coburn had a hand in that, that forces what was a informal relationship, it formalized it. So, and this may sound strange to people, but the chairman of the boosters, the president of the boosters, did not, in the past, did not sit on the athletic director's senior staff. He wasn't in those meetings. With the FSU Athletic Association, he does sit in those meetings. And on the FSU Athletic Association board, the athletic director has representation, the boosters have representation, and of course, the president, the Westcott administration has representation. And so I think with Michael Alford, it'll be great. The working relationship couldn't be any better than by hiring him. And that's important.
Mark, I kind of want to get your take on the new Mike Alford as the AD.
Yeah. So for me, it looks like he checks all the boxes. When Tyree was being floated around, I was a little concerned. I just didn't know the guy, but also, his ties to FSU or his profile nationally obviously wasn't anything guy that I've heard of or heard that had any great impact. I'm sure he's got, he has a lot of positive qualities, or else obviously we wouldn't have done what we did. But all that being said, to me, the things that are most important is that obviously he has a relationship with the key people in administration and with the donors. But even more than that, we need an advocate. We need an advocate at the ACC. We need an advocate on the national level. We need somebody to represent FSU's interests that carries some weight. And from everything that Jerry has talked about, obviously that sounds like this is the guy. So although, some other universities may have made some splashy hires, I think that Mike, sorry about that, sees UPS is here. It sees that Mike's the right guy for us.
All right. Well, Fish, you got any take on the AD and how it played out?
Well, the one thing I want to ask, Jerry knows a lot more about it than I do because he's dealt with these ADs and everything, is what are they going to do as far as the gap between the ACC and the other conferences? I read something the other day where, like, if 2/3 of the conference decided to break the grant of rights, they can do that. That's the only way the grant of rights for the TV contract could be broken. Does FSU kind of do what Texas and Oklahoma did and kind of collude and try to break the ACC up and try to, because the financial part of it, FSU needs to catch up for them to be competitive in the next 10 years in college football. And that's my biggest concern, is the financial side of it. Can they close the gap, and how are they going to do that?
Well, I would say that, as far as the grant of rights and breaking the grant of rights and leaving the conference, I think that's a conversation for another day. I don't know that Michael Alford's hiring moves the needle on that. That's a big subject and big topic. To me, what we have to do right now, like Coach Bowden used to say, if you want a better job, make the job you're in the better job. And I feel like this conference with Jim Phillips, we already saw Comcast come on board. It's going to be interesting to see over the next 2 to 3 years how much additional revenue that translates. Because right now, the SEC network has 90 million households. The ACC network has 90 million households. So, that doesn't mean, though, the dollars are going to be equal, because where the revenue comes from is eyeballs watching TV sets, not households. And I'll be curious to see. We all expect the gap to close, that the ACC network will now begin to generate more revenue in the next 2 to 3 years now that Comcast is on board. But my question is, how much more? Because I think at the end of the day, your ad revenue comes from corporations, what price they're willing to pay for spots on your network. And that's all based upon eyeballs and ratings. So,
but the ratings, though, are going to, you saw with the ACC championship that Pittsburgh and Wake Forest, there's just not enough fans that follow those teams. And the numbers were way down. And you need the Clemsons, you need the Florida States, you need the Miamis up there to drag that conference back up. Like Clemson is coming back to the pack. They're losing a lot of their coaches now, and Dabo's going in-house. These programs need to be good for the conference for them to get more money out of the TV deals also. They can't have it's nothing against the lesser teams in the conference. It's the reality is more people watch Florida State, Miami, and Clemson than they do Wake Forest and Pittsburgh. That's just
Let's
reality.
be
So
honest.
how do you?
Yeah, let's be honest. And I go back to Coach Bowden. We have to make this job a better job. And Florida State needs to win. Miami needs to win. That's the only reason the ACC brought us into this conference, was to win in football.
Yep.
And we've let them down. And so we need to do our knitting. And that's what Mike Alford can do. He can go out there and raise money and build facilities that help us attract ball players and help his coaches win. And if he does that, then we'll start to see Florida State back in the conference championship game, and those ratings will go up because of who we are. But we've got a lot of homework to do to get back to that conference championship game.
Well, speaking of championships, and not just conference championships, the women's soccer team brought home a national championship on Monday night. Bob, kind of bring us up to speed on the soccer team, and it was another great year, a heck of a run, and a heck of a game on Monday night.
Yeah, it was fun to watch. A little bit too much anxiety, I guess, with the penalty kicks yet again, but that's the way this team has kind of rolled. I think they were tested in May on penalty kicks, and being in that situation again on Monday night, when they had to come through, when you had to have save and you had to have big kicks, it happened for them. And it was really cool to see the community come out on Tuesday night. The Marching Chiefs were in the Champions Club, probably about 500 or so fans and really administrators from across Moore Athletic Center were there to welcome the team back. And it's a team that's really been embraced by the community, I think, and they've appreciated what this program has accomplished. It's now 3 national titles in 8 years, and almost in any sport you look at, that's really tough to do for one program. Truly, maybe 7 minutes away from 4 national titles in 8 years. But I think the other cool thing is we're starting to see some support as far as getting those video boards out at soccer and softball. It sounds like they are really close to making those video boards happen for replay, so that it makes the fan experience really good for soccer and softball in 2022. So, a good week for Florida State. I think this is what makes Alfred's transition maybe a little bit easier too, right? Is that you're coming off a national championship and you're kind of continuing that enthusiasm on into 22 when you take over the job.
Well, it was fun to watch them in the college. I guess they call it the playoffs. So the soccer tournament. It was fun to watch them. It was a great game on Monday night. And boy, I'm gonna tell you what. I know we're really good and our girls are fast, but boy, BYU's girls could fly around that field. I mean, those like blue darts. But yeah, it was a heck of a game to watch. And
hey, Pat, let me jump.
What's that?
Let me just jump in on this soccer thing a minute. I go back on this, historically. When we started soccer here at Florida State, those girls played on an intramural field. It had a fence around it, no stands. And I was like, Mark, you might have been here at the time. I think it was 91 when we started women's soccer. Yeah. I think I'm right on that. But, when Dave Hart became AD, he said, we've got to build facilities. And he wanted to build, multi-million-dollar soccer softball complex. Everybody thought he'd lost his mind. And he said, if we build the facilities, they will come. And, the old line, if you build it, they will come. And sure enough, he got Patrick Baker, who was a hell of a coach. And then Baker took another job, and we got Mark Krikorian. And Krikorian because he has these facilities, he's been able to attract, some of the best women's soccer players in the country. And the same thing happened in softball. We built a beautiful softball complex and attracted a coach who attracted players. And since we built that stadium complex, we've won 5 national championships in soccer and softball.
Yeah.
And we continue to expand. We put a roof on softball. We're putting in scoreboards for soccer and softball. And people think, well, throw a scoreboard up there. They don't realize those scoreboards cost $2 million.
Yeah, they're not the old-timey scoreboards from 1980 with they're different. They got video boards, ribbon boards, and everything.
Yeah, they're expensive.
Well, speaking of facilities, Bob, you were at a 4 or 5 hour meeting, I guess, yesterday in regards to the expansion and renovation of the football stadium. And there was a vote taken that was not so unanimously approved, but they're moving forward. Talk to us a little bit about what's going on with Doak Campbell Stadium and Blueprint.
Yeah, so Jerry and I kind of took turns monitoring this meeting, and Jerry was there. I was watching it on live web stream. But for those of you who haven't kept up, it's a $20 million ask by Florida State Athletics for infrastructure improvements to Doak Campbell Stadium. So we're talking about restroom improvements, rebar, hand railings, and things like that. It's not luxury seats. So the name of it is in the name of sports tourism. It's about economic development for the community. And we've seen what these facilities have brought as far as hotel stays, restaurant stays, money into the community from people coming from out of state, whether you're coming for football, for cross country, anything like that. And $20 million is something that Florida State really feels like this is an opportunity for them to make those needed improvements of infrastructure to solidify a 71-year-old Doak Campbell Stadium. We don't think of it being that old, but that's the reality. It is, and it needs some of those bones improvements to then go about doing the necessary, I think, high-level club seat type projects. But we're talking about things that everybody can enjoy and everybody can appreciate with the stadium. Now, the catchy thing about the vote is it was 7-5 in favor, but it's not done yet. And it's going to go down to another vote, I think, in February. So it's become a little bit political, and I don't think we want to get too deep in the details, but it is still in the positive territory for Florida State right now. And I think it's been a good ask by the administrators and the staff as far as just trying to utilize some of the sales tax funding for something that can be, really good for the community.
Well, guys, there was also some. We've made it about 30 minutes into the podcast and have not talked about football yet. So you can tell there's a lot going on. But just like with the other sports and the university itself, there's a lot going on in Florida State off the field in football. Plenty of activity this week. Linebacker coach Chris Marv resigned to take the defensive coordinator's role at Virginia Tech under new Virginia Tech head coach Brent Pry. Of course, this was kind of out there before it was out there, because last Sunday, Randy Shannon appeared with all the defensive coaches at an in-home visit or in-school visit in Niceville. So the cat was kind of out of the bag. And, of course, we don't know that Randy Shannon will be named linebacker coach. There's a lot of speculation of that. But Mark, just give me your thoughts on Marv leaving and obviously the potential of Randy Shannon being named linebackers coach. And then Fish, I'll ask you the same question. And of course, with a little bit more of a spin, how does that, if Randy Shannon is named linebacker coach? And right now there's no reason to believe that he's not, but it is speculation at this point. How does that impact Florida State recruiting Miami, the South Florida area, particularly now that his former teammate and is the head coach of Miami, Mario Cristobal. So, Mark, I'll start with you on Marv and Randy Shannon.
Well, it's the reality of the business that is coaching is that, every coach has their goals and ambitions. And, you like to have stability. I think those days of, coaches being around for 15 years at a program have obviously long gone. I don't know that we'll ever see that again. But what you do like to see is that, guys realizing their goals and able to, if they're moving up, that's a good thing. I think if they're moving lateral or moving down, that could be indicative of something else. So, the fact that he left for a promotion, I think that's a good thing. I think also with the possibility of having Randy Shannon come on, you're getting a guy that obviously has tremendous experience at this level. He has, he's been successful in a lot of different roles, from head coach, coordinator. Obviously, he has ties to South Florida that can only benefit us. So, to me, on the surface, it looks like a net gain for us to have that experience there, to team with Adam Fuller and the rest of the staff, to have that maturity and that experience in those meetings, in that room. Obviously, he's been there this year, and I think it's no accident that the defense improved like it did when Randy got there. And I like to think that he had a big role in that. Also, along with Shane Burnham, I would say.
Yeah,
but so, not to discount Shane, right? But that makes my point. The more those kind of guys you can get in those rooms, it just means some more. That's why there's such an emphasis on expanding the staff with different roles. You have your analysts, you have your recruiting specialists, you have all these other roles within the program that are not necessarily on the field coaches. Many hands make light work. And the more experience and depth of knowledge and experience that you can get, the better off you're going to be. So for me, like I said, on the surface, it looks like a net gain. You're losing a guy who's moving upward, who's really young and whatnot, but you gain a guy with a tremendous amount of experience and a proven track record.
Fish, your take on Marv and the possibility of Randy Shannon being FSU's next linebackers coach?
Yeah, I think Marv took a lot of heat, from the recruiting standpoint. I thought linebacker wise, I thought the play of the linebackers actually got better this year for the first time in a while. So as a coach, I think Marv's a very good coach. He just, he struggled at closing, but not everybody is a great closer in recruiting. That you've been around. There's guys that are good at just creating the relationships, and somebody else has to come in and help close. And I hope he goes on and has a successful career at Virginia Tech. The guy's a great guy, and I think a very good coach. So I don't wish him anything but the best. But Randy just brings some stability to that side of the ball, and he knows what a Florida State football player needs to look like when he's going out on the recruiting trail. He's not going to just take anybody. That's his experience. When you go back and look at the great teams that he coached on, a lot of those kids that he went after, he knows what they look like. He knows what they act like. He knows what they're supposed to do once they get to Florida State, and the type of kids you need to win. And I think that will help improve the floor and also the ceiling as far as who they go after and recruit. He won't just settle for just anybody. And I think that's an important key. So I think Randy coming on is a big get. Plus, it's another guy that was a head coach. Mike Norvell's still a young guy. When you're talking about head coaching at the Power 5 level, it's always good to have somebody that you could lean on that has experienced certain things, whether it's rivalry games or just in general as a coach. He could kind of lean on Randy and ask him questions and maybe help him through some of the things that he may struggle with as just being new to coaching at the Power 5 level.
Yeah, I agree with both of you, and I do believe that it was, to Mark's point, because of Randy's experience in the state, in Miami, as a former head coach, as you mentioned, Fish, with a young head coach in Mike Norvell, particularly at the major college level. I think it's a net gain for Florida State, and obviously wish Coach Marv well at Virginia Tech, except when we're in Blacksburg or they're down here. The bigger question for the linebackers, whoever the linebacker coach is who the hell is he going to coach? Because Emmett Rice is declared for the draft after missing this year. Jaleel McRae is in the portal. McCluster's in the portal. DeKalen Brooks is in the portal, which leaves you with Amari Gaynor, Steven Dix, Lundy, Deloach, Green, McKnight, and Jordan Eubanks. Obviously, Fish, to me, and Mark, and anybody that wants to jump on this, you got 6 linebackers for a 4-3 defense. Those numbers don't add up very well for 2022. What is the solution? Less likely to be those critical guys playing in backup roles, you really don't want true freshmen doing that. What is FSU doing, Fish, to offset these losses and the numbers? You said that Randy Shannon nor Mike Norvell will not just take anybody, but they better take somebody.
Well, I mean, let's be honest, they're going to hit the portal and try to find somebody out there. I think there's a kid out of UNLV that was like an all conference type. I don't know if he was an All-American, but the guy was pretty good. They're going to try to just piece it together and try to get some of those guys that are in the portal. Recruiting wise, I've been skeptical. There's guys that I thought they should have gone after. There's one kid, EJ Lightsey, who was committed to University of Florida. I don't know if he's still committed. It seems like every kid Florida's was committed has decided to decommit. But I think there's guys out there. You just can't not. The worst thing you can do is not take anyone, and then the following year you panic and you take bad. You just don't want to keep this cycle of bad players. So they got to go out. There's guys out there that can play for them. At linebacker, they just need to go out and recruit them. I'm sure some guys will slip through the cracks till the later signing period. So if they could get one kid out of the portal and bring in two guys from recruiting high schools, I mean, that would bring three. That gets you to 9. I don't know if that's ideal for the college level, but they need to bring in 2 or 3 guys. Omar Graham's one of the guys they're bringing in, but I think right now he's basically one of the only linebackers they have. And if Amari Gaynor
backer. Yes, sir.
Yeah. If Amari Gaynor decides to leave, then you really have a problem. So it's just, I don't think he's made a decision yet on whether he's staying or going. So we'll see what happens. But they definitely need to improve that part. I thought Deloge played a lot better as the season went on. Lundy's kind of limited in what he can do. He's more of, he's limited what they can do. They may have to run more 2 linebacker sets, go 4-2-5 and go to their strength, which is playing with a lot of DBs. I still think the strength of the team is a secondary. And if you look at who they're bringing in, it's only going to get stronger. So,
anybody else on the linebackers and what they need to do? I know, Jerry, you love linebacker play.
I mean, for me, obviously, it's critical. Fish said 1. I think maybe they need to get 2 out of the portal because, look, those runners and hitters are the guys that fill your special teams, right? There's the guys that run down on kickoffs and man your punt teams and kickoff return teams. I mean, those are the guys you need on the field for those. So, I know there's a history of using starters on all of those teams, but there's times where you got to fill those spots with guys that can run and hit, right? So that's a critical thing. We got to get some guys in there that can do those roles now. For me, if I had to pick that's the position I think we need the most help in. That and defensive end.
Yeah, and you're right. They got to find at least 2 portal defensive ends too. The good news is they're going to get to use 32 because they've had enough portal transfer guys that are in the portal that they'll get to that 32 number. Because you also had besides Emmett Rice, Jalen McCray, Jay Custer, you also had offensive lineman Ira Henry and Jalen Goss entered the portal. Carter Boatwright, a tight end. Of course, Chubb has been in. True Thomas, a defensive lineman, has entered the portal along with Brian Robinson, and of course Dante Lucas was gone a long time ago. But the other, Jerry, are you still with us? Because I know that you've kind of done some research on this. But another position that Fish and I think they might, and maybe everybody on this call thinks they might go after, is a transfer portal quarterback because you did lose Chubba and Mackenzie Milton, and so you're left with Tate as your backup, and A.J. Duffy coming in as a true freshman. Max Johnson, Brad Johnson's son, LSU's quarterback for the last year and a half, has entered the portal. His brother, who is a tight end who was committed to LSU, has decommitted. Bo Nix is in the portal, Auburn quarterback, and has some familiarity with Kenny Dillingham, who I want to talk about Kenny because he's been connected to the Auburn's offensive coordinator's job. But anyway, Jerry, do you have any thoughts on Max Johnson and his potential transfer, where he may end up?
Yeah, I've had correspondence with Brad Johnson, his dad, and Brad says that it's complicated by the fact that the 2 boys want to go to the same school. So they're in discussion, the two of them, on what is the best fit for each of them, and then they'll choose the school that they feel is the best fit for both of them. Now we know that Mike Norvell likes tight ends, so what, right?
Yeah. He has a lot of tight ends.
Yeah, and he uses them, and so I don't know what the interest is there either way. If where Norville stands on him or where he stands on Florida State's offense.
Jerry, I'll
Yeah.
jump in for a second.
Please.
I watched Brad Johnson's kid last year at the Miami, or 2 years ago at the Miami camp, the tight end. There is not a tight end on FSU's roster that is even in the same stratosphere as that kid. Like, this kid would start literally from day one.
Wow.
He is that good. I don't want to say Jeremy Shockey good, but he's got that type of upside. And
wow.
I'd give up all 6 of our tight ends on our roster right now. The kid tight end, Norvell, you're going to take Brad Johnson's kid. I'm just telling you that right now. He's special. So
he's 6'6" too, isn't he?
He's a big, tall, long, athletic. He's a matchup nightmare for defense.
And then the other issue.
I saw this kid as a sophomore at Miami's camp, and there was
man. We can't hear you. We can't hear you.
I'm here. I could hear you guys. So
we're getting a lot of feedback. I don't. Go ahead. Repeat that, please.
You want for me or Jerry?
3, 2, 1.
What you were saying?
No, I was just saying that the kid's the most talented tight end that FSU would have on their roster, and he's a no-brainer. I mean, you got to take him, and I personally think, and I know that there's some nervousness in taking the quarterback, but they got to win. To me, they got to win 8 games next year, and I know everybody loves Jordan. One with his situation of staying healthy and being able to play 12 games in a season. I don't think they could be, if Brad's kid, and I think they're the quarter, but you saw enough of him last year that if he's on a good team, he could get you to 8 wins, and they got to get to 8 wins next year. And the quarterback position to me is the most important position that they need to upgrade it on that team. So that's, if you could get the 2 of them, it's a great package deal. I would take both of them tomorrow. And listen, they can't worry about if Duffy's going to stay or leave. Like, they're not in position to have some freshman that's never snapped it down, that left IMG early this year, dictate to them who they're going to take. They got to be very careful, and they got to win next year. The pressure's on them to win 8 games, in my opinion, because that's going to be the expectation with this team, that's the next step up, winning 8 games next year. So.
There's opportunity at quarterback on this team. With Jordan Travis, of course we all love him, but truth of the matter is he gets hurt with this way that he plays. I mean, he needs to turn into Russell Wilson a little bit and start avoiding some of the hits that he takes, right? But the truth of the matter is he's going to miss a game or 2. So there's opportunity there. Even if Max comes in and doesn't start, he's going to get an opportunity to play. And of course, if a guy comes in and gets the hot hand, then he could be the guy. So, are you going to get a better opportunity anywhere else? I don't know. I don't know anybody that has a quarterback situation quite as fragile as ours. So right. There's opportunity there. And obviously Mike has a history of using the tight ends, and the matchups he tries to gain with personnel groups and tight ends, I think is ideal for both those kids, so got to trust they're going to do the right thing, that we have a shot at it, and that they go after them hard.
My understanding is both of them are supposed to be on campus this weekend. That's what I've heard. I don't know how true that is, but I'd keep an eye on that. If they show up on campus this weekend, that's going to tell you what they want to do, Norvell and the coaching staff. So look at that, Jerry. I would check into that. I'm almost positive that both of them are going to be on campus with Brad this weekend. So,
Yeah, that would be pretty cool to see that happen if they both ended up here together. And you're right, the tight end, the younger son is a heck of a prospect. And Max, obviously, it's not bad. I think he's led the SEC or close to it in touchdowns over the last 16 or 17 games. Going back
against 6 interceptions, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's like 27 touchdowns, 6 picks.
Yeah,
that's not a bad ratio.
No. So, again, back to what Brad said, they're looking for that school where they have an opportunity to play early. And, of course, they're going to enter early. So both of them could go through spring wherever it is they choose to go, which would make spring very competitive.
The other thing, too, with A.J. Duffy is, Brad, if Max does come, Brad can relate to A.J. about his experience here, right?
Yeah.
I mean, not even starting and even as a senior, and still having the career that he had in the NFL. I mean, it doesn't necessarily translate just because you sit the bench doesn't mean the NFL doesn't know you're around, but just to be patient, and your time will come. It seems like that's an exception these days. Quarterbacks are not patient or not mature enough to kind of see the big picture on those things.
Yeah, but the one thing is Duffy's a very good. Listen, I have him rated the number 1 quarterback in Florida this year. I think he's a special talent. I just don't believe, from what I know, that he's ready to step on a field. Like, you look at Sam Howell, who's probably been one of the best quarterbacks as far as freshmen to come into the ACC in the last 5 years. As good as he was as a rookie, they still went 6-6. It's very difficult for quarterbacks to have success. And I don't think, I keep saying this, I really think Florida State needs to get 7 has to be the floor. 8 wins should be, something with the improvement they made at the end of this year. 8 wins should be a goal for this football team going into next season. And to do that, they have to solidify that position. And they're not going to do that with A.J. Duffy. There has to be that understanding. I think Mike Norvell would be crazy to put his coaching career in the hands of a freshman quarterback next year and have that kid be the one to lead you out of this. I just, if you could bring in a veteran quarterback like Johnson's kid, along with Travis, I feel very good heading into next season, getting to that 8-win goal. So,
yeah, I bet Georgia wishes they could sign him and put him at quarterback next week or 2 weeks when they're playing in the college football semifinal. And that's where they're from, is Athens, Georgia. So that might get interesting as well. Bob, are you hearing anything on the portal and Max?
Yeah, honestly, Jerry's been a lot closer to it. I think my only caution is there are easier paths to playing time for Max Johnson if he chooses to just find an easier route. I mean, not saying that Jordan Travis is firmly entrenched and should be named the starter day one, like literally right now for the 22 season. I'm not saying that, but if you look at just purely depth charts, and we know a lot of quarterbacks are looking at depth charts when they make a decision to go in the portal. Let's be honest, Chubba Purdy did that. There are just easier paths than Florida State. If this weren't Brad Johnson's son, I don't think a lot of the recruiting services would have jumped on it and kind of, I don't know, speculated that Florida State is a front runner.
Yeah, well, I agree. I think everybody here, learns that his dad is Brad, and or both the kids are Brad's kids, and they make
but his mom's Mark Richt's sister, so
yeah. But Miami's got a quarterback, so let's hope.
Or Georgia.
Hey, well, let me ask you on to Bob's point. We'll talk about this a little bit more. What do other schools' depth charts look like? If you look at Georgia, for example, hometown, who will they have back next year?
Daniels will have a shot to be back if he wants to be. I don't think he's run out of time. And they also have a young quarterback coming in, a freshman quarterback that's supposed to be a big-time quarterback. He was a 5-star kid out of Georgia this year that's coming in the spring. So I don't think that depth chart is that most of these schools, especially the top schools, have quarterbacks. I mean, you're going to have at least one guy on the roster. If the kid wants to go to a school that doesn't have a quarterback, then he should just drop down to a group of 5 school and just go win that job because a default. He's going to have to earn that job no matter where he goes. I don't believe – I know you guys I know a lot of people love Jordan. I think the coaches have tried to find guys to beat him out, and he's just survived the process. He's been very fortunate. They wanted McKenzie Milton to start over him. They wanted Tate to start over him, Chuba, but Jordan's persevered, and I give him credit for that. But I still think they feel like they can improve that position. They're going to, and they have to. And having Brad Johnson's kid improves that position. And that's what they need to do. So I don't think it should scare him off. I don't think there is a better situation for him.
I don't either.
Yeah, if he's as good as we think he is, then yeah, it's going to take care of itself, right? I mean,
yeah.
And plus, if these kids are ever going to go to the next level and have any chance of playing, the NFL doesn't care what they think about who else is on the roster. You're either the best player or not, so you might as well adjust to that now. Speaking of recruits with famous fathers, or at least fathers related to the program, I believe Julian Armella, one of the top offensive line prospects in the nation, is on Florida State's campus this week for his official visit. Fish, you are down close to Fort Lauderdale. Of course, his father is Enzo, who played nose tackle for Florida State back in the late 80s, early 90s. What are you hearing on Julian Armella's recruitment?
I think that Florida State did exactly what we said they would do. They would just rope-a-dope this thing all the way to the end, and they're going to be the winners and the benefactors of Julian Armella. I think he signs with Florida State on next Wednesday, and it comes down to them just being patient and letting the process work itself out. Alabama signed 20, probably has like 20 offensive linemen coming in this year. Miami basically eliminated themselves early on. Florida fired their coach. Like all the people they competed against, LSU fired their coach. Florida State just sat there and waited. And I think they're going to be the benefactors of that situation. He will sign with Florida State on National Signing Day. So.
Yeah. What they also had 3 other prospects in town, at least high school pro. I'm sorry, at least 3 other prospects, and there may be more, as you said. But Azara Thomas from Niceville, an athlete, 6'1", 177, 4-star kid. Then Marquise Gilbert from Hutchinson, who's, I believe, been here for a game. And then Daniel Lyons, who's been committed, defensive lineman from Homestead, who's been committed for a while. What do you know about those kids, Fish?
Well, I think the Thomas kid, what I like about him, one, his brother starts at Georgia Tech and has been like an all ACC conference type player. This kid's better. He's a better player. That's why he's got better offers. Big, long, athletic kid. I was wondering why they weren't in on him earlier. And we've talked about this. I really think that FSU has, I don't know what it is, but for like the last 15 years, west of Tallahassee, there's been a lot of great football players that just haven't gone to Florida State. And it's great for them to have a shot at a kid like this, because I really think there's a lot of talent in that area. This kid's from Niceville. He's a very exciting prospect because I think he has NFL potential and he can play multiple positions. He's probably going to be one of the better players they sign on signing day if they're able to ink him next Wednesday.
Yeah, it's gonna be. That's hard to believe it's almost here, and of course, I think we'll probably have a lot more portal action over the next couple of days and weeks. Guys, I do want to ask you and Mark this, or everybody really. Speaking of recruiting, to that end, 2019. Every program in Florida State, every program in the state of Florida has a different head coach heading into 2022 than the 2019. Mike Norvell, obviously at Florida State. Billy Napier took the Florida job on last week, and then Mario Cristobal took the Miami job 2 days ago. Obviously, all these guys are in their prime of the coaching career, all known as high-energy recruiters. Is it more difficult for Mike Norvell as a recruiter now with Mullen and Manny gone? Because Cristobal and Napier are also known for their energy too. So, Fish, has Mike Norvell's staff's job gotten harder in the state recruiting?
I'm going to make it a little more difficult in South Florida, but it's if you really look at the history of the recruiting, as much as they go head to head, it's not for every kid. So Florida State will still do better in South Georgia than Miami, and hopefully they get into Pensacola and Jacksonville and Tampa and stuff. But I think there's a ton of talent in the state. It's good that all three schools finally have, I think, probably the best coaching situations they've had in a long time. So let's get back to keeping the top kids in state. I don't think it's going to make much of a difference for Mike Norvell. He could still go out and get a lot of very talented kids. So.
Do you guys think, and Mark, I'll ask you this question, and Jerry as well, do you think that with all three of these guys, obviously have improved themselves at other places, good football coaches before they are where they are now, and given their ages and their energy and the history between these three programs, do you think these rivalries kind of take on a new life on and off the field with Cristobal back in Miami and Napier obviously being a successful coach at Louisiana and has a great reputation as an assistant, and of course Mike here, who has changed the culture of this program in a year and a half or so. What do y'all anticipate from these three programs with the new blood that they have in them?
Well, I'll say definitely in the Miami situation has definitely improved. They've got a proven athletic director. They've got a commitment for investment in the infrastructure to try to modernize Miami's situation. That's always been the thing that's kind of held them back here the last couple decades for really. And then Mario is a proven head coach at the Power 5 level. I know Oregon kind of finished flat this year, but I watched them earlier in the year. I was really impressed by the way that they played. The physicality, the attitude in which they played, and the way that Mario carries himself. He's won a championship at Alabama. Miami. He's got that pedigree. So I think Miami's definitely improved their situation, and that's welcome. Honestly, we want that to be strong for the conference, for the rivalry. We're not scared. I think Florida's a little different. Napier doesn't necessarily have the head coaching chops proven that Mario does. He's got the pedigree as an assistant. He's been in Alabama, he's been at Clemson, he's been at several places, had success in a smaller division, but he hasn't done it at the SEC level yet. He does have the reputation as a great recruiter. It all depends on the staff that he brings in, right? I think Mario's looking to bring in a couple of his guys from Oregon. I'm sure, he's going to fill in some guys with experience in South Florida in the state. Napier, for him, it's going to be who he surrounds himself with. So I think for Florida, it's TBD. I think for Miami, they've definitely improved their situation.
Anyone else got an opinion on the trio that's taken over the state and what it might do for the competition between the three?
I think Mario was a great hire for Miami, quite honestly. A guy who's an alum, recruits the area really, really well. I think he had a quote basically questioning other coaches, why, when he run into them at the airport, he'd always kind of ask, why are you leaving Miami to go recruiting? You should be recruiting right here. And, to Mario's point, there's plenty of really good prospects within Dade, Broward, and also Palm Beach County. I think Miami's made some significant improvements, and the question just remains long term. Do you get an on-campus stadium, and how long does it take you toward that goal? We can definitely see Miami kind of building towards something. It's just a question of how long does that take. I think we also need to see the rivalries be at their best because of where the ACC is and still needing to elevate itself from a football standpoint. I think it's better when Florida State's rivals are really good, are ranked in the top 25 or even higher, because then it makes a Florida State win over Miami feel bigger, a Florida State win over Florida feel bigger. Or, hey, even if it's a close loss, then you don't feel terrible. You feel, let's be honest, you feel terrible because it's a rivalry loss. But you want the rivalry games to be as good and as competitive as possible, back to the 80s and 90s when it was really one of the best rivalries in college football. And too often of late, we've seen matchups where neither team has been ranked. And so it still means a lot within the state, of course, but just nationally, the perception just hasn't been as strong. So I think you want Miami and Florida to be better.
I think the state of Florida, I think it's better for FSU, and Miami and Florida are better, and legitimate powerhouses along with Florida State. I think it makes college football better when all three of those programs are functioning at a high level. And I think now you can throw with UCF being in the Big 12. I think that you want to see them have success as well, simply because I think that you'll see them probably roll off and on some of these three FSU, Miami, or Florida schedule from time to time. But I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And I think I think Cristobal is a great hire. I think it is going to bring some competitive competition between the all three schools. And then, of course, the one question I do have, obviously, Mark, I'm going to start with you on this one because you've been in this, not this situation, but you've been through that dead man walking thing at South Carolina that I've experienced with you as well. Manny Diaz, the way Miami handled Manny Diaz, is that just the way we're doing business these days, or that could have been handled better? Was that a lack of leadership because of no AD and maybe a president didn't want to get their hands dirty? How do you feel about how all that played out with him being on the road recruiting and them actively pursuing and probably hosting Mario Cristobal in discussions?
Yeah, I kind of feel strongly about this. And look, I'm not naive. I know these deals happen, in the shadows. They happen, kind of behind the scenes through agents and whatnot, even when guys are on staff. But the way this played out publicly with, Manny and his staff on the road recruiting, trying to recruit for the school. And, oh, by the way, openly negotiating with Mario, to take the job and all that circling around, that's just a bad look. It's almost like, the typical response should be from Mario is, they have a coach. I'm out of school. I've got no comment, but there was silence from him. To me, I think that's a little, like I said, it's almost like he broke the code on that, so I have a bad feeling on that one. I just don't feel good about that. It's a bad look, because look, this affects families. This affects people. I mean, look, in my own situation, I remember one time when things were going south for us at South Carolina, going to a Halloween party and somebody dressing up as a realtor with my address on a for sale sign, right? I mean, that's a bad look, right? I mean, stuff like that happened. It's bad enough as it is, but to let it play out publicly is just not you lose your dignity, right? I mean, what's the price of dignity is something I wrote, right?
Mark, I feel bad for you, man, but that is funny. I'm sorry.
No, I get now. I can laugh at it. At the time, but my wife was there too. You know what I'm saying?
I know it's terrible.
My wife was there too.
I want to ask you something, Mark. Though I was thinking about it. I thought it was terrible how they handled Manny, but at the same time, I'm thinking, is this the way college football is going to go? Because they created the transfer portal. They're firing coaches, and there's an early signing day now. Is this the way a lot of schools are going to handle it so they could keep their teams together and their recruiting classes together, just keep the coaches in limbo and then just negotiate?
It is. Because here's the deal. Because what would happen if at the last minute Mario backed out? Right?
They still got Manning.
Yeah. Now what do you got? And you're an administration sitting there, did this to your head coach, and you've undermined him like that, and all of a sudden you're stuck holding him. Now what do you got? And that's going to happen if they keep doing this. That's going to happen, right?
Yeah, I think though that this is the way it's going to happen from now on, because NCAA basically neutered these programs the moment they said we're going to have an early signing period, because that first class now becomes like basically a wash for that new coaching staff. I mean, you go look at Billy Napier at Florida. I mean, they're like down to like 4 or 5 commitments. I mean, how's he even going to fill out a class this year in 2 weeks? You know,
Right.
so
And he doesn't even have a staff yet.
Yeah.
I agree with what Rick Neuheisel said on Inside College Football and CBS Sports, and we are starting. A lot of these changes were made right when they were made because of the early signing period, and I think they got to do one of two things: either got to eliminate it and go back to February, or you got to push it up and give early signing day needs to be in August before their senior year starts. Let them go ahead and jump in if they feel that good about it, and then have the traditional National Signing Day in February. But yeah, it's you're right. It was a bad look for Miami. Listen, it's Manny.
You understand that's what you sign up for when you get into coaching. And it's part of the deal. But it's still, and honestly, that's part of the reason why I said goodbye to college football, because I didn't necessarily have the stomach for it, but I just didn't think you treat people that way. And it's go ahead.
No, you just look, though. I hate to interrupt you. You just look at the way the early signing period. If you don't make these changes, it makes it very difficult on that new coach to have success right away. You're basically saying to that coach, yeah, we're hiring you, but forget about this first class. Because if you look, none of these schools that sign coaches that first year have good classes. You could look at Norvell's first class, and that's not even counting COVID. I mean, there's a lot of attrition already.
Well, that's definitely a problem. That's definitely a problem. And you know what? The Coaches Association probably needs to get together, and they need to hash this out and bring up some kind of proposal, because it's just not a good way to do business, in my opinion. It's just a bad look. Really.
Hey, let me say 2 things about it. One, this business about, we're bringing in you late, and we're just going to ignore the fact that your first year class isn't any good. Don't worry about it. That's malarkey.
You're right.
Because in 2 years, when he's winning, he's 5-7, they're going to want to fire him.
Right.
And they are firing those coaches after 2 years. So, that's nonsense. It matters. And the second thing is, I'll say, we're talking about coaches bailing and going, other places, and the university administration treating them really badly. Well, let me add a third factor that we haven't talked about yet, is fans. I was running a $20 million annual fund, and we had 40,000 season ticket holders associated with it. And if you don't win like 8-9 games, your season ticket base is going to fall to 20,000, and your donor base is going to go from 20 million a year to 9.5 million a year. That quick. The fans will fire you just as quick as administrators will fire head coaches.
Right. You're right. You're right about that.
It's a crazy business, man. It's a crazy business.
Once the fans quit on you, and they'll come back, some of them, but when you lose $9.5 million in annual fund revenue and 20,000 season ticket holders, that's another 8 million. That'll bankrupt an athletic. That's $17 million that the fans have now forced the president to make a coaching change, because they vote with their checkbooks.
Yeah. Well, hey, speaking of guys trying to lose fans right off the bat, Brian Kelly walks into the LSU basketball game to be introduced to the LSU fans in attendance, and tries to pull off one of the worst Southern accents I've ever heard in my life. He kind of came across as a tremendous jackass, which I'm not a huge fan of his. But did anybody see that? I mean, that was one of the silliest things I've ever seen.
It was bad.
Really. I was cringing on that one for sure. I'm a firm believer that certain schools have certain fits for certain coaches, and that one doesn't fit to me. I mean, as good a coach as he is and as much success as he's had, I just don't think that's a fit. In short term, it might be okay, but I think long term, it'll be an issue.
Yeah. Oh, that I couldn't get over it. I mean, it was like watching a train wreck. I watched it over and over and over and over again.
That was cringy.
Anybody
post that on the message board, man?
Oh, that was crazy. I've never seen anything like it. It was fun. All right, so guys, I know we've been on here probably a little bit longer than we anticipated, and that seems to be our standard. But the last regular season game of the year is this weekend, so we do have picks to do. Army versus Navy. Probably one of my favorite football games of the year, if you want to know the truth. I was going to do Division I AA playoffs, Jerry, but I know that you really don't care about Division I AA football. But who you got in Army versus Navy tomorrow at 3:30?
I'll take Navy.
Bob?
I'm going to go Navy.
Fish?
Well, since I go on the coach's hot seat thing and the guy from Navy's on it, I'm going to take Monken and the Army cadets to basically help fire that coach. So I'll go the opposite way of you guys.
Have you guys ever been to an Army Navy game?
I have not. I want to go.
Yeah, I've been to one. I have a good friend that went to his son went to West Point, and we went up to Philadelphia and went to that game. It's an incredible experience. So I'm an Army guy, so I'm going Army.
All right. Then I'm going to ask a couple other questions. I'm going Navy, just to be the dissident or whatever you want to call it, just to be contrarian. Plus, I don't think Ken Niumatalolo is getting fired if they get 50-0. He's won more games there than I think any coach in the history of the school. All right, so the playoffs, you saw the championship games last weekend. Alabama ranked number 1, Michigan 2, Georgia, and then Cincinnati 4. So you got Alabama, Cincinnati, Michigan, Georgia. I'm not going to ask you for your picks now, but were you fine with the top 4 and how they were ranked? Mark, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how else they could have gone, honestly. I'm fine with it.
All right. Bob?
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm good with that. I still want to see more than a 14 playoff, but if you're going to look for the best 4, I think those were probably the best 4.
I would.
Looking for Jerry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. It would have been interesting though if Oklahoma State had won. I probably would not have put Alabama in there. I mean, no, I wouldn't have put Georgia in there.
Really?
But, well, somebody has to go out, and you got Alabama beat Georgia, but I don't know. I just think it would have been really. I mean, I'm fine with it with the 4 as it is, but I think an Oklahoma State win would have made it more controversial.
Yeah, but Jerry, Alabama lost to it. 8-4 Texas A&M team. So
yeah,
Georgia lost to an 11-1 Alabama team. So
I think if Oklahoma State had won, Cincinnati would have been left out.
Yeah,
and that you would have had 4 teams. That they would have been the 4th team.
Probably right. You're probably right.
Bob, you said you wanted to see the playoff expanded. I don't know that I do. I mean, the whole reason we went to 4 is because when we had 2, there was always a controversy about who 2 was. And you figured if you got 3 in there, then you at least got that part right. You at least got the best 3. Now we're talking about who's the 5th best guy, the 4th best, and the 5th is being left out. So you're always going to have that other one there. I think, 4, to me, 4 is good enough, and because really you're looking for the best 2. And I think out of those 3 teams, we got the best 2.
Yeah, my only deal is that if you're going to have a Power 5 conferences, I think every conference champion should have a seat at the table in the playoff, and then you have at least one at large. Now, I know Pat's been kind of beating the drum that there's going to be super conferences very soon, as soon as these TV contracts come up. So, I mean, once the TV contracts come up, we're going to see some method of expansion with the playoff just because that's where the money's going to go.
And that's why.
I'm good with 4 teams. I just think it would be better if we see 8. I know 12 has been proposed. I don't want to see us go 16 or 32. Let's not go crazy, but we know the money is going to come from ESPN or whatever television network, and that's going to dictate what happens with college football.
Yeah, I think you're right. But yeah, I would have. The only thing I might have done, and when you look at Alabama did play more opponents ranked in ESPN's top 40 football power index, if that means anything. I might have put Michigan ahead of Alabama. But I would have had the same 4 teams in. I think, Jerry, if Oklahoma State had won, we have a whole nother argument altogether. But that would have been very interesting to debate on who was in, who was out, and if that had happened, you certainly would have seen the cry for expansion continue to grow. Well, guys, we had a ton to cover. I think I think about the second full week after football season, the previous 2 years that we were doing in the Osceola, and I don't think we've ever had anything other than Mike was hired about this time 2 years ago. But other than that, it's been a really busy week. I appreciate you guys joining me today. Yes, sir. Go ahead, Jerry.
There's one more thing that we didn't mention during the recruiting. We got to see another portal kid in here today, the kid from Albany.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
Jared. Anyways, defensive end and 6'4", 250, and he doesn't look quite like Jermaine Johnson, but he's a very attractive player and bright kid from what little contact I had with him. He's a very attractive kid.
Yeah, I think that they do think highly of him, and I think he is probably on a lot of teams' radars. Fish, do you have any insight into him in particular? Fish, are you still with us? I think Fish left us, or he can't hear us. But all right, so we will be back next week with updates on recruiting. Early National Signing Day is, I believe, December 17th. Fish, am I right on that?
Signing date is Wednesday, the 15th.
The 15th. That's right. So we'll be back for a post recruit early signing day pod. We appreciate you joining us, guys. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate our Osceola subscribers listening and subscribing to the Osceola, and appreciate our Seminole Sidelines listeners. If you're not an Osceola subscriber, please go to theosceola.com. Click on the subscription tab and go down to the discount code field and enter FSU20 for a 20% discount off our annual subscription rate of $74.95. We again would like to thank Alumni Hall for sponsoring Seminole Sidelines podcast. And you can certainly get some of your favorite FSU stuff for your favorite family members for Christmas. And don't forget to go sign up for your discount code with Alumni Hall. You can go to the Osceola, click on the Alumni Hall ad, and you can sign up for your 20% discount code card for online purchases this holiday season. Guys, thank you again. We went a little long as usual. I hope our listeners will bear with us. And Mark Salva, please sign us off as always.
Go Noles, baby.
This has been another edition of the Osceola's Seminole Sidelines. To subscribe to the Osceola, go to theosceola.com. Go Noles!